My name is Euan Smithers and I research how plants grow at St Laboratory, University of Cambridge. I'm a mathematician and I use the tools that I have and know to model and try to understand how plants grow. It's a very for such a fundamental process which the whole society depends on for food. Very little is understood. So I began my research journey looking at the microscale. So really examining, like plants are highly inflated vessels. So this is the pressure they feel is comparative to like tires. So they have to put up with a large amount of stress. So to put up with this, they have stiff cell walls. And so I started off looking at the on a very small scale these cell walls to see how they grow, to try to see how the enzymes or proteins and molecules get into the cell wall and actively allow it to loosen and extend, and and to examine a possible hypothesis as to how the cell wall is connected, because we don't know. And then I started looking at a larger scale, so looking at growth at the cell scale. And then these are awesome looking cells in a lot of species of plant leaves. Well, they're not all of them, but in some species they form jigsaw-like shapes, and they kind of interlock, and the question is, how do they form this shape? Unlocking how they form these complex like jigsaw-like shapes could help unlock how other cells form their shape. So I once again applied maths to try to understand how they grew into these shapes, using like modelling the chemicals and the cytoskeleton components and the mechanics. And then now I'm looking at the tissue-wired grow, of just asking the fundamental question of like what happens when you place a cell wall, because when plants divide, and like animal cells, they can move about. So animal cells can move about, plant cells cannot. So they're highly inflated, and that means a lot of stress, and where the divide has a complex relationship with stress. And so that's where we're looking at now. How do they decide whether to divide there, what shape to form? These are like trivial questions which have not been answered yet. Plants are highly mechanical, so that gives us a big advantage for modelling, because we can apply mathematics. You can learn the tools and you can apply it in several different scenarios. So the same mechanics engineers use to model bridges, we can then import into plant modelling. So we use like elastic rules to try to see how the cell walls deform when inflated via pressure, right? This water pressure the plants feel. It's the reason why when you don't water your plants, they go flaccid, and so we can use these mechanics. There's different approaches we can take. We can take like an analytical approach, which is when we apply certain equations, like in the microscale. We can apply like fluid mechanics equations, equations which you can use on bacteria as well. We can apply on the cell wall to see how the cell wall flows and how it changes with like the growth, and how then enzyme action affects this growth. Then on the cell level, I've then applied some like stochastic simulations of the cytoskeleton, of them stochastically interacting. The fibers all, like maybe they're gonna they can bundle up with one another and go in the same direction, or they can suffer catastrophe, and we did this stochastically, using computer simulations, and when we had like reaction-diffusion equations, which you quite often see being used to model Turing patterns. And then once again, then we get into the mechanics, which is where we get into the using like the universal rules of mechanics. And so once we, it's this key example of like we have these mathematical tools, and we can then apply it to loads of different scenarios to try to understand what's happening. Stochastic modelling, everything you run a simulation, and you use random or noisy probabilities to determine like the outcome. So we have certain interactions with these cytoskeleton components called microtubules, and so they can hit each other, and with a certain probability they can then like either cross over, continue as usual, or like bundle up, or suffer a catastrophe and start to collapse. And this probability changes also with the interaction. So what we mean by stochastic is it's all based on like randomness and probability. The initial maths spark, I would say, was kind of like a bit lame, of just like I was good at it at school, and the teacher, I remember one time, was just like, "Oh, you, and I'm going to try to get you an A star," and so I was like, "Okay," and I just put in a bit more effort, stuff like that. But then another teacher, while I was in sixth form and I was deciding what to do for a university, she sent me to this event at Manchester University, and it was the first time I saw mathematical biology as a concept. All you see at school is not really inspiring, and so then I had this talk about like how mathematics can be applied to viruses, and using the platonic solids, so you can use that to see how you have virus capsids form. And that was the spark of like, oh, this is really awesome. I had no idea that this was a thing. And so then when choosing where I was going to do my degree, I chose, ended up choosing the University of York, because that, from what I saw, had the most like mathematical biology topics. And so that's when I was saying like, okay, I really like science. Mathematical biology is really cool. I can do the maths, and the biology is super interesting. So I went down that route, and I hadn't fixated on plants yet. And then I saw the PhD advertised by Dr. Rosemary Dyson, which was about plants, and I was just like, yeah, that seems really cool. Working under really kind of like, I think I got attracted to it at the start. I was like, it's just so under researched and just so fundamental as well, to the world, and so very like kind of like it seemed like important research to be a part of. And so then I started getting more engulfed by the plant world. I did a placement at UCLA, and learned how to do experiments, and I was like, and then I got really gripped with how when science is interdisciplinary, it can be really great, and that's where also when I feel like some of the best science happens. And so that's why I'm now at the Sainsbury's lab, where like maths and biologists mix all the time, and it's just, I think, hopefully we can do some good research there. I would say the best thing about my job is discovering stuff and learning. I love the chance to learn, and so I'm just like in lab meetings or hearing an internal seminar, I'm just like discover a whole new way that plants are amazing, and just, yeah, the chance to also be doing something novel. Like the work I'm doing is not, no one's, it's not, I'm not repeating really anything. I am creating something new, which can hopefully, help to the, help the science community.